So, Amit, also thank you very much for organizing the session, and to all the panelists. I'm going to sort of break the talk into two sections. So I'll first start with what is student engagement, and then I'll talk to you about learning methods and some things that we actually do at TAPMI. So let me just begin with what is actually student engagement. Multiple definitions of student engagement. I sort of picked up the one that the NSSE uses, which I think is quite apt. And it talks about two sort of critical features. One is the effort and the time that students are actually putting in the studies and educational activity. And the second is almost the institution that puts in its resources, time. It's almost like an intersection of the motivation that they have and the institutional resources that we as business schools or universities put in. In fact, engagement is also looked at as a degree of attention, curiosity, involvement, optimism, passion that students actually display. So if that is engagement, I want to take this a little further and talk about four sorts of inputs. Suresh touched a little bit upon it. I think Professor Agnihotri also spoke a little bit about it in his earlier comments. I want to start with the character. So whom are we dealing with? Are we dealing with adolescents? Are we dealing with customers? Are we dealing with consumers? Are we dealing with takers? Amy spoke about stage on the stage. So I think it's in some sense, do we even have an osmotic relationship with our students? So who is it that we're dealing with? So that's the input character. To me, if these are really adult consumers, how are we dealing with them? The input capacity. For example, if you think of management knowledge as water, then we have multiple cohorts. Some students could be, for example, water dispensers. Some could be, if you want to categorize as water chiller, some could be an electric kettle. So we are dealing with multiple cohorts of students. So what is the capacity that they can actually absorb? The input customer. By this, I mean, are we now engaging and creating wonderful materials only for the students? Are we looking at what is relevant to industry? So who are our actual customers? And then the quality, where we deal with who are these students who come in? Do we psychometric assessment of these people before they walk into our classrooms? That's on the engagement part. Now, if we quickly move on to strategies. Several people spoke about different strategies, and Suresh spoke about the mystery that he runs in his marketing class. I sort of think about, as an inquiry-based learning. Are we doing things that creates enough curiosity? And I remember Suresh mentioning curiosity in his talk as well. And then personalized learning. Do we allow our students to take courses from multiple institutions? Are we now doing blended sort of learning or sort of adaptive? How much of feedback are we able to give to students? I don't think engagement actually needs to happen throughout the class. There are certain very intense periods in a class when the engagement levels are very, very high. In fact, research would even show you that silence can also be a level of good engagement because there's a lot of reflection that happens. And the third point I want to make to you is how much of technology do we use to talk about innovative strategies? So a very interesting article, the HBR came, which spoke about, do we do enough role plays? So excellent way to engage students. And I do this as well in my classes. So how much of role play do you play? Do you actually get them to take a vote? Do you do smaller bus groups? So smaller groups of people who will be able to engage. And then do you bring in a protagonist to a class? Do you bring in to your class a really well-prepared guest who can actually talk about that specific case? I think Professor Agnihotri spoke about how the Harvard cases are now becoming shorter. Absolutely, I agree with you that nobody's now wanting to read a 20-page case with a 15-page annexure or appendix. So cases are becoming shorter, but we also can make the classes extremely stimulating, extremely exciting by doing some very, very simple things. Role play, simulation, live projects, I have seen makes a profound difference in the way the students actually react. So moving on to something called as an action learning, which I teach a course at TAPMI called SMIC, where it's a student managed investment course, where we give students in total 10 lakhs of real money from TAPMI, and they have to invest in portfolios and present to me every single week. And it is so real because the final evaluation, I get some of the best fund managers in India to come and evaluate them. So a problem and action appears a critical sort of built-in reflection. They maintain a nauseating detailed around 150-page investment diary, which they document every single investment decision they have taken. I think the sort of action learning is really, really important. To look at very innovative methodology. They have to use the Bloomberg terminals. They have to use the Reuters terminals. They have to present to me why they picked a certain stock, why they picked a certain industry. So it's as real as it gets. And there's no simulation. This is real TAPMI money. We give away 10 lakhs of real TAPMI fund to invest in the markets, right? So I think that also builds a fantastic amount of engagement and great amount of learning. And it's a team-based investment strategy they have to follow. So how do you facilitate reflection? For example, we never asked a student, how did you solve the problem? What was your approach? I mean, did your team members have a dissent? Did they do this very differently? Could you have done something differently? And finally, what did you actually learn? I think that to me is a really important question. And if you want to see further, we don't want to treat this action learning as some sort of a separate section, right? It's sort of integrated at different points in time. And I feel action learning with impact is a very, very powerful way. A couple more slides and then I'll be done. So leading the way here, I want to talk to you about storytelling. We have a wonderful course. In fact, data visualization is using storytelling. Storytelling is a very, very powerful way. It connects the learners of all types. In fact, studies tell you that 40% of your cohort are about visual learners. Another 40% could be auditory. Another 20% could be different types of learners. And the storytelling actually has for all sorts of learners. It has a great connection, and it also sticks. People remember. And that I think is a very, very powerful way if you can actually do this, if you can use the data and sort of visualization to storytelling. And finally, I want to talk to you about this high quality engagement. So you look at the motivation of the student and the institutional strategies and efforts. There has to be an intersection, right? And that's when you get excellent learning and engagement. So what is it today the B school students want? And I wanted to spend just a minute or so about their own expectations. Today, they want to have very high levels of skill. They want to have a great career guidance and support. All of us deal with this placement internships that happen. They want to be having community membership. They talk about personal growth as well. Excellent industry connect. They expect a lot of the corporates to come to campus. They want a great campus life. And they also want lifelong signaling. So the expectation levels are also increasing substantially. And therefore, it's even more necessary for B schools, and of course, top B schools and all B schools, I think, would have to really think about how to match and meet those expectations. I want to sort of conclude with 2 points. One is the COVID challenge for student engagement. We have always been talking about student engagement, but the last 2 years have changed substantially. So in this slide, I'm showing you what cannot be offered to students because of this, what we have rationalized, what we have reinforced, and what were the new opportunities. So here is the answer to that. So sort of outbound learning definitely got affected. We could not do the very high levels of immersion program that we do. We just couldn't do it. There was no travel possible. We definitely had to rationalize the face-to-face industry interface. Things had to be done on WebEx, Zoom, MS Teams, or whatever else. So that had to be rationalized. But we really provided some amazing well-being initiatives and real mental well-being, and all of that was done substantially during this period. And then we saw that the virtual mode, there were new opportunities for us. So this virtual mode also created a fantastic connection with 300 odd corporate partners that we deal with at TAPMI. So there were challenges, but there also were opportunities for us. And lastly, I just want to stop at this slide, which is basically about how do you do engagement at TAPMI. Monica presented what they do at KJ Samaya. So there's a pre-admission process called Parichai, which we started last year, and where I write a letter to every aspirant and sort of talking about why they should choose TAPMI and sort of the benefits of doing an MBA program and all of that. And then when they come into TAPMI, we have something called as a FAST system, where students are put in a group and they have a faculty mentor. Then we have this well-being at TAPMI initiative, very flexible learning mechanisms. You can pick electives, courses from different programs, different areas. You can also have, for example, go to university and pick some more courses if you like. We have a whole Coursera license available to each student. You can pick courses from there as well. We have early onboarding, extended internships. We do amazing work on sustainability, MIT Solve, complete placement training. We have great Ignite Aspire series where alumni and excellent amount of industry practitioners come and talk. So we do a lot more engagement, and this is quite important. And like Monica also spoke about student community, we do a lot of work with the students, and they of course take part in all activities at the institute level. So one of them is what we call the SPG, which is the strategic planning group, which advises me as the director. And in that we have the student council president sit on it. So we also want to know from them about their perspectives and their views. And the welfare committee, which does a great amount of work in looking at welfare of the entire campus. So to me, I look at engagement as an extremely important focus. I understand that there is a limit on the time that students have. They probably are not focusing any more than 5 or 7 minutes. but we are also not entertainers. But I certainly think that we have a great job to do. And I cannot imagine a situation, colleagues, where the lectures can be completely done away with. And that to me does not look like it's possible. We have great value to add, but it's how we position the material. And like Suresh spoke about mystery and maybe taking it to the entire class and trying to get them to have this mind of inquiry. To me, that's exactly what is needed. And I tend to do them in my classes, and most of us try to do that in our classes. I hope some of these comments were useful, and I'm pretty certain I'm not above time or over time. So thank you very much for the opportunity. If you have any questions, very happy to take them.